The issue of marginalization is not new to human civilization. Marginalization, according to many social anthropologists, can be viewed as social exclusion. Based on research, the term marginalization refers to the social process of becoming or being made marginal, especially as a group within the larger society, the marginalization of the underclass, the marginalization of literature. Marginalization, according to Karl Marx, exists during his time of existence. According to Marx, marginalization of the society then was aided by the thrust of the society to gain and maintain financial benefits. The owners of production were the elite. The owners of production separated themselves from the labor force. They kept the profit earned as a result of production and shared little in the labor force, the masses, who did most of the work. The existence of this system continued for years and was known as the capitalist system. This system, according to Marx and Engels, had negative socio-economic implications on the society. One such negative implication is the creation of a defined class system. According to social anthropologists, marginalization refers to the process whereby something or someone is pushed to the edge of a group and accorded lesser importance. This is predominantly a social phenomenon by which a minority or subgroup is excluded, and their needs or desires ignored. During the era of slavery and the period which existed immediately after this event, class marginalization was a great issue. During the days of slavery, male and female slaves were not allowed to live together resembling a family unit. According to the plantation owners then, this would represent too much the European style of living. They felt slaves were beneath this standard and outlawed this privilege. During the slavery era, slaves were not allowed to celebrate Christmas on the same day as their plantation owners. During slavery and immediately after slavery, freed slaves were not allowed to participate in any local or general election activities. It was a law that you had to own property to vote. The above stated situations are clear examples of social marginalization of poor black people who lived throughout the Caribbean. The elite during slavery designed the law of governance which saw them having a say in the daily operations of the country. It is evident based on research, that there are several evidence to suggest that a great deal of marginalization existed throughout the Caribbean during the period of colonization even until today. The Caribbean region, although considered linked with history and location, is further complicated with the view of a complex social structure system. The elite class, according to Karl Marx, heads the class structure system. This structure of society existed in Europe. In addition to the elite class, there also existed middle and lower social class. Each class had distinct characteristics which were used to identify them. The elite class or the upper class controls the system of governance, and the avenues of production. While the middle class did not have as much resources as the elite, they had a reasonably means of surviving. Below the middle class existed the lower social class. This social class, according to Marx and Engels, finds it difficult to meet their daily needs. The social problem of poverty affects their daily routines. Today throughout the Caribbean region, marginalization exists in several ways. These may include educational opportunities, health care, transportation, availability of social amenities, water, electricity, telephone and access to the internet, and employment opportunities. Many schools throughout the Caribbean region are known to be traditionally associated with the elite. New secondary schools are never usually granted the same level of aid granted to school attended by the elite. Resources are secured by the elite. The availability of the resources ensures higher rate of success in external examinations. Schools which are categorized as newly upgraded are usually at the mercy of the government to offer assistance which would help in the preparation of their students for their external examination. The availability of health care services for the entire society has also been marginalized. Public health care services are understaffed, starved of resources which should improve patient care. Ironically, the lower class of society is usually the ones who actually use these facilities. The elite normally opt to seek private medical care or travel overseas to cater to the medical conditions he or she might have had. In addition to the poor medical services being offered to many lower-class members of society, the problem of poor transportation exists. While the middle and the upper opt to use private transportation, The majority of the lower-class structure of many countries found within the Caribbean uses their private motor vehicles, transportation. The opportunities being offered to the middle and lower-class members of society to acquire assets such as a motor vehicle are not much. This opportunity would hinges on the availability of employment amongst the members within the lower-class structure. Lack of employment within this social class group encourages criminality amongst members. The dramatic condition of unemployment throughout the Caribbean has encouraged individuals throughout the region to take themselves out self-absorbed apathy through criminal activities. The social relationships which exist throughout the lower social class points to survival at all cost. When compared to the upper middle and upper class structure of the Caribbean society, their prime objective is profit, and the control of most if not all factor of production as a result of class system which exist throughout the Caribbean. Laws are framed which allows elite to manipulate societal values, morals and interests so as to gain high profit margins. It is believed that based on the class one exists in, social relations, one may be allowed or disallowed economic, social and political power. Throughout the Caribbean and many societies throughout the world, class is also a lived experience. People act in the world in accordance with their relationships with other people around them and the communal resources available to them. There is a strong correlation between unemployment and how people relate with each other. Unemployment is a social problem. This issue adds to the concerns of the lower class which exist in society. As a result of unemployment, the type of housing accommodations are substandard. A number of resources are absent from a typical low-income community. The family which is expected to manage the behavior of the young tends to become overwhelmed with responsibilities which may be deemed critical to survival. The location of the varied low-class settlements in the Caribbean is referred to as ghetto, slums and inner cities. The economic strength of the lower class of society is weak. Opportunities which may improve social and physiological settings within these communities are not possible due to the lack of funding. One of the leading causes of economic weakness within the lower class of society is the inability to complete formal education. Much importance is paid to the completion of elementary or secondary schooling. The children seem to be highly concerned about earning monies which would assist their needs throughout the day or remaining week. At times child labor exists. Mothers stop their children from schools on days when they expect high sales in the market or when they need extra help to sell goods on the streets. When compared to children within the upper or elite social class, child labor does not exist. Children within the elite class of society are granted opportunity to access the internet, seek extra support for varied subjects and create an environment which encourages improved education. It is based on the above described situation many elite children are able to access tertiary education and become certified in specific high-profile careers. The limited education in which the lower-class children are exposed to, helps to further separate the lower and upper-class children. The trend described above aid in the cultivation of young adults which shortly will become deviants of the states. As a result of both scenarios stated above, the continuation of a social stratified Caribbean society looms. Wealth and power are increasingly concentrated into fewer and fewer hands. Simultaneously, there is the impoverishment of many communities, neighborhoods and families around the globe, and the escalation of unemployment and underemployment worldwide. Education according to Nambu Diri, 1996, impacts on the fertility rate of each female/family. Throughout the Caribbean societies, it is a tradition amongst the poor family found within the lower social class to have many children. This practice is not so amongst the upper social structure of the region. According to Caribbean statistics, on the family, a typical family in the lower class tends to have between an average of 6 to 10 children, while the upper class family units have between 0 and 2 children. This occurrence validates Nambu Diri, 1996, assertion about fertility rate within the family. The behavior of each individual within any society is influenced by cultural traditions of the family, community and society. In the real world, access to educational opportunities creates a gap between classes. This gap results in differences in occupation of the masses of the population of the Caribbean. It is evident throughout the Caribbean that inequity and inequality amongst persons existing within the lower social class exist when compared to the population of the other social classes in society. Occupational opportunities amongst the lower class population are limited. This limitation occurs as a result of the lower class population inability to secure employment regardless of their qualification. Many communities deemed as inner city are frowned upon by many employers. Persons from some communities are not given the same opportunity to be employed as those persons living in more astute and socially acceptable environment. Some members of these communities are not offered employment while others are not qualified due to their inability to attain the necessary scholastic qualification. With the trend of the poor lower class population not being educate themselves in some cases beyond primary school, in most cases beyond secondary schools, the dynamics of the jobs are available to these individuals are constant. Lower-class people within the Caribbean society are most likely to qualify for only industrial labor-type employment. Professional careers are usually taken up by persons within the middle class and the elite group. The mortality rate amongst for individuals within the middle and upper social classes are lower than that of the lower class. This can be attributed to the education received amongst these social classes. According to many researchers, greater care is given to children within the middle and upper social class. Indeed, with the social opportunities granted to individuals within a specific social class comes an opportunity which tends to automatically marginalize those whom have benefited and those who just did not. Health and the elderly are areas which also divide society. This division exists amongst social classes, and affects the entire society. It is believed that members belonging to the lower social class has a higher mortality rate when compared to persons within the middle and upper social classes. Have you ever observed some elderly within a low-income area pushing himself or herself to make a living? Regardless of the health concerns, he or she still concerns himself about making a living in his or her daily needs. When carefully evaluated, many elderly and inner-city or low-income persons does not have an economic plan for themselves which stretches past the next day. As far as pensions and savings are concerned, this is not a priority during their high days of employment. The general feelings amongst the poor are that their children will take care of them. That's an argument which has propelled many low-income/poor families to have several children, knowing well enough that they cannot afford to support them all. It is the poor elderly who finds themselves on the road and living on the streets trying to find food. Many have worked all the days of their lives supporting their children and have never received an interest on that investment. Many have outlived their children and are alone with no one to care for them. In many cases, due to the high rate of criminality within these communities, many elderly are parents to criminals who are presently serving long sentences in prisons. These individuals, the elderly, has no health plan, secure housing, welfare support or physical care. When compared to the elderly within the middle and upper social class, the reality is different. Many elderly within these social classes have made wise choices with their investments. Many are now reaping the benefits of a well-established pension plan, a house or two in which they own and is now renting to earn some money, or being supported by the one or two children in which they invested heavily to attend university. The reality between these two groups people are different. The real determinant of this difference and in turn marginalization is the education they both received. In addition to the already highlighted difference, it should be noted also that the elderly within the inner city or low social class tend to live a shorter life than those within the middle or upper social class. The accolades granted to persons looking astute within society creates a margin between classes. It is based on the assumption of class, based on appearances. Many store clerks, office staff and bank tellers and educators judge their clients, students and other members of staff. This behavior have further compounded the issue of marginalization not only in the public space but also within the permit of where we live, work and interact. There are several economic implications of marginalization of classes. As members of the Caribbean region, it is believed that the masses or lower class is greater in number than the middle and upper social class. Should society in general fail to grant equity and equality in services and opportunities, it would be a great injustice. This equity and equality being suggested can only be attained if policy decisions are taken by leaders of the region. The pattern of governance in which the Caribbean now enjoys only benefits the few at the helm of the region, the elite. According to Marx and Engels, poverty exists as a result of the poor organization of society. Once capitalism is the main economic platform of society, poverty is inevitable. Poverty is attributed to the exploitation of the working class by the owners of capital. In many low social class communities throughout the Caribbean, because of the lack of will on the part of the government and the owners of production to address the social conditions which exist, the problem of crime is now being associated this social class. According to several statistics carefully evaluated from across the Caribbean region, crime varies by communities. Crime exists as a result of greed, the wanting of a specific lifestyle and the need to survive. Crime is a tool used by many low incomes, poor communities to survive. According to statistics, specific types of crimes can be attributed to the varied social constructs of the Caribbean society. Violent crimes, extortion, rape, robbery and murder are just a few numbers of criminal activities which occurs throughout the region. The above list crimes are most associated with low-income, poor, poverty-stricken communities. Other crimes such as fraud, nepotism, and corruption are associated but not limited to both middle and upper social classes. As a result of the traditional imprint in which the lower social class has on the general society, many persons outside this social group regard everyone inside the group referred to as low social class as criminals and delinquents of society. Throughout the Caribbean, it has become a trend for many persons within the upper social class not to seek or get involved in any activities which may include anyone from the lower social group. In Jamaica, for example, many persons would find it beneath their social class to shop downtown Kingston. Regardless of how expensive it is elsewhere, they are willing to make that sacrifice. As a result of the above described, there has been a clear line of demarcation between the uptown and the downtown class, the lower class and the upper class. As a result of the high incidence of criminality within the lower social class areas throughout the Caribbean, the rate of death within these communities exceed by far communities in which the middle and upper social class actually reside. Regular gang war, police shooting results in deaths within this area. This is not to suggest that death rate is not of concern to the wider class structure. Throughout many Caribbean societies there is a concern about the rise in domestic disputes amongst the middle and upper social classes, along with the high instances of suicides. It is believed that many persons now positioned within the middle and upper social class were once within the lower social class and have been elevated regarding social status due to several activities, some of which are questionable, some of which are just fortunes due to winnings from lotto, game shows and gambling events, to name a few. Technically, these persons may never be fully accepted by the middle and upper class members of society. It is the belief of the middle and upper class that there are only two ways in which you can be considered a member of these groups, namely education and the fact that you were born to a member of this group. Marginalization exists throughout most low-class settlements throughout the Caribbean as a result of criminality. Rarely do you see the security forces launch a curfew within a highly profiled upscaled community. Police are more careful when taking someone in for questioning within the middle and upper class community. Doors are not kicked down. In some cases the lawyers of the accused are present before the search warrant is executed. In low social class areas the security forces may hold you in custody for days or weeks before questioning are done. The apprehension of suspects is not always accompanied with warrants. Searches of premises are at times considered illegal. Properties are destroyed or stolen by those set to protect. The difference in treatment of individuals based on class association highlights the extent in which many Caribbean nationals are being unfairly treated, a clear sign of prejudice, which dates back as far as years slavery. The issue of marginalization exists beyond that of lower social class and crime. To a great extent gender is of great significance when considering marginalization in the Caribbean. To many the idea of the women being subservient to the man is a great idea. To many religious communities the idea of the woman being a helpmeet for the man is also great. Both arguments, however, are rejected by those who hold the feminist ideologies with higher regards. The feminist is of the belief that women serve a purpose higher than just staying home and giving birth to children, taking care of the home and husband. It is believed that women serve a purpose just like men, to contribute economically to the home. Throughout the region, men hold several high positions within large organizations and institutions. Up until the mid-2000s, men were dominant in politics. To suggest a woman prime minister would be met with laughter. The marginalization of women has evolved. Women are now positioning themselves to be leaders within organizations which were once managed solely by men. The role men once played in many organizations throughout the Caribbean have been gradually slipping into the hands of females. Throughout the Caribbean, males have opted to enter the working environment immediately after their secondary school education. This has created a void in tertiary institutions which is being filled by females. In Jamaica, over 80% of the students attending the University of the West Indies are females. This ratio gives women the edge when they seek employment in the future. The truth be told, women may have the intellectual ability to manipulate exams successfully and complete their studies without much hindrances. Men are, however, considered by many organizations and institutions seen as better workers for particular working environments which may exist. Regardless of the qualification of the female, men are the preferred choice for employment. This preference is considered as marginalization. Women seek to position themselves on a particular platform which makes them in charge and wanting to prove themselves, being better than men. According to many researchers, women are great planners and organizers, however they fall short of execution of these plans. Many women would totally disagree with the previous statement. Regardless of how the statement makes you feel, the reality is that the physical build of the female differs from the man. Based on the biological difference, many organizations/institutions would prefer to employ men than women, especially in the area of industrial and technical labor. The question is being asked: why is the practice of gender marginalization in the Caribbean? History has shaped the Caribbean society. The history of the Caribbean region suggests that the idea of a male-dominated society was a norm. The adoption of male and female having similar roles within the family and the workplace is a newly emerging ideology. As time progresses, the global trend have aided in the evolution of the role of women throughout the world, including the Caribbean region. These changes have had significant cultural, political and social implications. Interestingly, as a result of the Caribbean being colonized by countries holding in higher regards the patriarchal type of family system, the Caribbean societies have adopted wholesalely this practice. Many feminist and gender studies enthusiasts have suggested that while slave ended for all blacks in the mid-1800s, only men gained total emancipated and independent. The inherent culture which teaches that women are subordinate to men still existed. It wasn't until the era of women liberation during the 1970s that women began to accelerate within varied positions throughout Caribbean. Women throughout the Caribbean are inching closely to the position of being totally equal to men. Many men welcome the contribution of the women to the economics of the home. With the changing economics of the home, much help is needed in the balancing of expenses within the home. As a result of the acceptance of women as a breadwinner and a major contributor to the operation of the home, the ideal role of women, washing, cooking and cleaning, has to now be shared between the two, husband and wife. However, this role is not being welcomed by many Caribbean men. These tasks are seen as feminine and are frowned upon when asked to participate in such. Many men are laughed at and referred to as mama man, sissy and big gal. The change in the role of women seems to be permanent. With the evolving nature of work, and the creation of specific career to suit women and men, one may consider the role of women as the same, just that they have been able to perform their roles outside of the home. A clear example of this is the vast number of women taking up the opportunity to seek employment in the hotel industry, performing typical housework they would normally do around the house. The acceptance of the changing roles of women has been inconsistent. Men still desire the social power in which they had from they existed throughout history. There is a limit to the extent in which gender relations and equality will become mutually accepted by men. The Caribbean region is practically at a crossroad and is active in creating varied paradigms in which both male and female gender must be engaged to deal with dissolving of the marginalized views of gender, from a scholastic perspective. In addition, It is believed that policymakers should try to navigate changes to varied policies which would accommodate the ease of tension between genders. Changes which results in these tensions should be diligently addressed, and they, policymakers, should aim at fostering continual changes within the Caribbean region. The cultural acceptance of both genders having the same worth and weighting principle and action will take some time. Women are not the only ones being marginalized. Many men are faced with the huge task of seeking employment which is reserved specially for females. Many careers are set aside as careers for women. Rarely in any private organization or institution would you find a male secretary. Many careers are women-dominated based on the clientele. Owners of these establishments prefer women to work them, aiming at attracting male clients which would profit the business. In conclusion to this paper, it is a given that marginalization exists throughout the Caribbean. Marginalization, which is explained as social exclusion, occurs throughout the Caribbean in the form of prejudice amongst social classes. Marginalization occurs amongst criminality and gender. Each case of marginalization has its own implication on the general society in which one lives. Social mobility is prohibited within the framework of social class marginalization. Criminals are viewed differently based on their origin, and opportunities varies based on gender. It can be concluded that the existence of marginalization throughout the Caribbean have resulted from the historical heritage of the region. The colonizers of the Caribbean were prejudicial, viewed the poor as worthless, and told the women their position is to manage domestic duties. To evolve from these ideologies requires much effort on the part of policymakers and scholars within the Caribbean region. The issue of marginalization is not